If you mix it with the whiskey, add a little lime, which is where the green comes from, and you drink a bunch of it, you'll be staring out of the lake, laughing your head off.
Well,
The
there's
kids have
my
come up to me and said, "We tried it, man. We lost our minds." And I think, what have I done? I've inspired a generation of idiots. Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Audiophiles. My name is John. His name is Andy. Through early morning fog, I see visions of the things to be, the pains that are withheld for me. I realize and I can see. More on that later. But because it is Friday, or yes, it is, special episode, they're always special, I hear you say. But we have a track carefully selected um, using sugar tongs by one of our wonderful viewers. Viewer in question this time is Conrad Walsh. Always makes me think of Conrad Night Socks, and anyone who knows Alan Partridge will know what I'm talking about. Um, Conrad Walsh, they dropped a comment on Nick Drake episode, Riverman, one of the finest songs ever written, I believe.
goodness.
And they suggested another band which we've listened to before, um, Riley Walker and his Merry Men, doing a song called Primrose Green live. And
Yeah,
then fit.
remind me, John, what the last track was that we had done by Riley Walker.
So I dug up this album by Riley Walker called Primrose Green.
Yeah.
Um, I'm very excited about it and gave you a track on it called Sweet Satisfaction. And that was two
Yes.
years ago. And we've had nothing since. It's not my fault.
No, that's fine. That's fine. But I do
It's,
because
uh, it's a
there,
great album, great song.
as much as Riley Walker was like kicking up something in my memory banks, just Primrose Green was actually doubly doing that. And I'm like, where do I follow? So that's the album. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, now it's all coming back to me. Yes. So as luck would have it, I'm going to be the one to go off and give this thing a spin, John. As you are obviously familiar with the more familiar with the artist and band than I am, and this album. So I'm going to take Conrad's suggestion and go run with it, give this thing a go, and I will come back and let you and everybody else out there know what I think. This is really pretty. I'm loving this sort of circular picked motif that's on the acoustic that is clearly more forward uh, in the mix or in the audio here from this live performance. But in the background, you can hear that steady but uh, lower in the mix beat of the bass drum and some of the hi hat as well. And then it sounds like you're hearing like an electric guitar, maybe lightly kind of picking through some stuff as well. And I love how this, you could almost imagine this same motif superimposed onto a banjo or imagined through a banjo, just because of the style, and even a bit of that twangy tone to it would lend itself. So I very much enjoying what I'm listening to here. It sounds like it's quite intentional for the acoustic to be more center stage, while the rest of this musical primordial ooze kind of take shape and form behind it, which I think is a really awesome way to slowly assemble a song. It kind of like it's blurry in the background, and then it starts to really come into focus slowly. Okay. Whatever instrument that gentleman in the goatee is manning is, I believe, creating these very digital sounding, like, burbles and like little carbonated bubbles that are sort of kind of quietly coming to the surface and popping. At least that's what it sounds like. It's very like digital sounding. Like a a melodic R2D2 back there. Those drums are picking up. Paradiddle on the snare. Okay. That was lovely. That whole, what was it, just over 3 minutes of kind of building this thing, and now they're transitioning, and I'll be interested to see where it goes. But since it looks like we're, for the time being anyway, closing the chapter on that 3 minute portion, I just needed to stop and say I loved how they brought that all together slowly but surely. It sounded superb. What's next? It's funny what I said about the banjo earlier could now, in my mind, easily apply to like the sitar or something right now in this sort of motif that he's playing. That bass. It's just the subtlety of the brush strokes of the drums. feel the rattle. Tinkles on those keys. Ran for the hill with a head full of Primrose green. I would love to know how this is done in the recorded version of this, only because, like, to this point, I've loved the way the live music has sounded. It sounded excellent. It really has, and I could see myself enjoying this version more than the, studio version, from a musical standpoint. But if I'm being honest, like, there's this, like, sort of through a cylinder and muffled, semi-muffled, aesthetic to the vocals in this, and I don't know if that's intentional. I don't know if that's how it appears in the studio version, or if this is just a product of it being the live performance. But I'll reiterate, it's the only aspect of this live performance that may have suffered, and I say may have because I don't know what the the source sounds like, or the recorded source sounds like, but I would venture to say that well, I would hope to say, or assume that it would be safe to assume that the vocals are produced and presented in a clearer fashion on the studio version, because I'm picking it up, but it just sounds slightly off to me, as you would come to expect from a live performance, especially one that isn't like super overly produced and edited and all that stuff. If it didn't go through any of those rigors, then that's, it's fine. It's what you come to expect. But just from a one-time listening perspective, that's the only, like, I don't know, gripe's probably not even a fair word, but I guess it's the only hair I would split, right? You can tell he's got a good voice. I just loved every bit about that. I'll talk about it more at the end of the song, but that was lovely. Oh my god. Oh, so groovy.
Thanks, that's all we have. Appreciate it. Brian Sulpicio, Anton Hatwich, Ryan Jewell, and Ben Boy. Jessica's on next. Stick around, smoke a cig, get a...
Smoke a cig, get a drink. I might have to after that experience. Yeah, that was so much fun. It was a lot of fun to watch it grow up and like take shape, and then to see what it truly became, especially during that, what was it, like the 8:30 to 9:30 mark or whatever it was, somewhere around there. Um, that's the part where I was like, I'll stop and talk about this after the song. About that part, the sort of from that very interestingly blended or mixed, balanced. Maybe this is the beauty of it being live, but the way that that lead was captured, where it clearly it's a lead guitar part of this, it's unfolding before our eyes and ears, but it's not thrust under the spotlight. It doesn't go above the music. In fact, in a very antithetical approach, conventionally speaking, it sort of falls back, or at least to an even line with the rest of the musicians, if not, like I just suggested, perhaps even a bit behind it, which I really enjoyed, at least in this. I mean, I know that there are other songs where I'm like, oh, I gotta wish this was pulled up in the mix, or I could have made that out a little bit more. But for some reason, it sounded really good the way that that lead guitar was going through its motif, while the drums came into focus and got sort of louder or more visible. They were like more in the forefront. Um, and I just loved the way that from there it went into this crazy slow burn crescendo, with all of this buzzing and humming. Provided I'm sure your man with the goatee was clearly, having fun and doing a lot of the um, toying with the dynamics in that to make it really feel like this encroaching wave was coming toward you. But everybody else was doing a lot of great work there. The drummer as well. The bass started to become more fervent and present as well. All of it sounded really, really great. Hell, even your man on the acoustic guitar was working his way up that neck as far as one can go, given probably the lack of any like clearance on a cutaway. He was still moving his way up that neck as far as he could towards the sound hole. Yeah, all of that was really great. And I thought that the first leg 3 minutes of the song was going to be my favorite, in the way that they sort of brought it all into focus and made it something from this, as I mentioned earlier, primordial nothing. But I think that's my second favorite part, because that latter part where everything really got like, funnily enough, went from being focused to more of this out of focus but in your face cacophony. That was probably my favorite. Would I have enjoyed this just as much, or maybe even a little bit more, if it was just an instrumental? Maybe. But I did, while the the clarity of the vocals weren't obviously something that was like one of the shining points of this of this recording. You still could hear that the man had a really good voice, and that he puts some of himself into his performance. I mean, as John would call it, the gurning, and some of that barking emotion in it at times is stuff that I like. I like when there's feeling injected into or conveyed through the lyrics. Don't get me wrong, I love the cold serial killer approach and the murder ballad every now and again too, because even that in a funny way, even though it seems void of emotion, conveys the mood really, really well. That in a way it kind of flies in the face of you know, the maybe assumed robotic approach of it, because there is actually something to be taken away from that. This gentleman obviously was leaning into it and having, putting himself in the song, which made me appreciate the performance a bit more, as those verses, those three stanzas kind of that were all very similar in content from what I was able to catch, repeated one after the other. So I don't want to harp on it too much. I just think that if it was just an instrumental, I would have liked it just as much. But it's not to take anything away from his performance or his sound. He's a talented fellow, not only on guitar but at singing. So yeah, this is a great shout, Conrad. I really enjoyed this tune. I'm not sure if you had suggested it or if John had suggested, not the song, but the exact video. But it was a lot of fun to watch this sort of intimate, up close performance of this song. So yeah, great shout, great video. Had a lot of fun. Can't wait to learn more. So let's get back to John.
Montezuma's Revenge. He's back. So you've had a listen to Primrose Green live by Ryley Walker Band. Please share your thoughts.
You always catch me off guard with your reintroductions, and typically they're things that are so British they fly way over my head. But I believe Montezuma's Revenge is an international affliction, so we've all been there. So I was like, oh my God, I got that one, but I hope I don't get that one. The performance begins with this nice picked circular motif on the acoustic guitar. And as this develops, and it's pretty forward, even in I don't know how mixed this live performance, but it's still, despite perhaps there not being a lot of mixing going on or any, it's more forward in the sound than it's developing counterparts. Go ahead.
I'd just say it's nice to see them perform. I've never watched a live performance of him either, so it was a treat for me as well. Excellent. I think that this wasn't the greatest quality. The music was all right. It wasn't that well mixed, as you said, but the vocal track was definitely down in the sock drawer, I think.
Yes, and to be fair, you kind of beat me to that, but from a musical standpoint, I found this. I said I've never heard the studio version of this a couple times when I was discussing this issue, but I liked the music. I think I would have liked it. I'd like this music more. I can't say that with any certainty, but I assume that I would gravitate just the way the music sounded. It felt intimate. You felt there. You felt close.
Yeah.
And I liked that about the music. It gave it this free range recording situation sound that I think sounded great with this. And given all the little intricacies involved, I felt like musically I picked them all up, and I liked the way that they were layered. So for instance, this acoustic that's very forward, right? Everything behind it is kind of this, and I've used this term before, but this sort of musical primordial ooze behind it that's taking shape and coming together, or it's like looking at a picture that's in portrait mode or something, where the thing in the foreground has great clarity, but the things behind it are a bit blurred. But then you start to see that lens transition, and the things in the background become just as clear as they approach the foreground, where the acoustic is occupied. So for some reason, it had this extra effect on me where I loved the way these first 3 minutes took shape behind this acoustic circular picking motif. And they milked it pretty well too. Like I said, 3 minutes, but I really enjoyed every bit of it. So you hear the hi-hat work, and you hear this lone bass drum being hit, and occasionally you'll pick up a little what sounds like, at this point, because it hasn't been verified, the sort of light electrified sounds of a guitar, and a couple low bass thrums, and then there appears this digital key work. And I know it's coming from your man on the goatee, but I can't see at all what he's doing. And it sounds far more digitized than your typical keyboard or piano-like sound. You know what I mean? There are these interesting effects that are going on. But all of this unmitigated for 3 minutes in this unbroken fashion created this mesmerizing circular nature that I absolutely fell for. So I love those opening 3 minutes. The drums do begin to inject bits of loose, almost shaky snare work. Like you can hear that the heads aren't fully screwed tightly. You know what I mean? You could feel it. And I loved that too. Again, that lends itself to this intimate vibe that I think I really gravitated toward um, in this video that others may have said was done shoddily, and yet for me it all kind of worked out. But except for those vocals, which we'll get to. You hear these occasional bits of upright bass note, and it's all quite subtle, as it should be in this kind of slow grower of a song that we have. More of these digital warbles and burblings appear like tiny bubbles of air rising and breaking at the surface of water. It's like a digital carbonation in a musical cocktail. Like, oh, this one has a shot of club soda or a little bit of Sprite, and then you see like the bubbles come up and burst with this effervescence, this very digital sounding effervescence. It's really, I loved it. Then just after the 3 minute this musical portion, things slow down. We get signs of change as the acoustic abandons that circular picking for some sort of gentle chord worrying. And as this unfolds, the other musicians pull back as well. But then, as this new motif becomes clearer and takes a fuller form, they begin to make their return. And the first one to capture my ear is our man with the goatee, creating those very interesting digital sounds. And then comes what sounds like brushstroke work on the drums, quietly shuffling along to this beautiful bit of the song. But the drums have this rattle, this extra loose resonance to it, whether they're hitting cymbals or drum heads themselves. It all has this extra bit of rattly resonance, which again, that lends towards the intimacy, like you feel like you're there. And I really, really love that about the way this was captured. And now, just around the 5:47 mark, we get our first taste of the vocals injected into the mix as our singer offers up. And it sounded like all three of these stanzas were either carbon copies of each other or tweaked words here and there, but were pretty similar in what the lyrics that they contain. So I only grabbed like head for the primrose green, kept me up all night, head for primrose green, made me high, and I ran for the hill with a head full of primrose green. So it sounds like he's like scored some good weed in London and just got smoked out of his head because I assume, referring to whatever grade weed he has as primrose green in his head, as he also alludes to being high. But maybe it's a metaphor for something else, and this is really just I'm holding a mirror up to myself and projecting here, because that's what I would have done if I got blazed in London. He then sings the next stanza, and from what I think I caught, there isn't much difference between it and the previous one. As I stated before, there's all these similarities between the lyrics. And again, the way it was recorded, where it's sort of this like through a tunnel and in the back of the room kind of sound, that kind of took away from it, the whole thing for me a little bit. But at the same time, I could tell that the guy has something. What you call gurning, there's a little bit of the side mouth where he looks like Two-Face from Batman, where the one side is just wrenched up, and he's barking out certain words at times where like his feelings are coming through in it. And I love when like there's a motive, a nature to a vocal delivery, and to a certain degree there was with this. So I could appreciate that, and I know that in a different setting this probably sounds great, and that he does have a good voice. It was just captured poorly, which isn't really his fault. So I don't want to fault them or the band. But I will say, like, if this was just an instrumental, I think I would have enjoyed it just as much, maybe even more on just a first listen, because there's no distraction in that quality of sound and how it was captured. Shortly after this portion containing the lyrical content, we move back into the instrumental territory with some excellent work by our electric guitarist. And again, this is really interesting too, because I think more often than not, lead guitars step into the spotlight. They go up in the mix. They stand sort of above or before the rest of their counterparts. But in this, it was almost like he was, instead of being like this, it was more like this, and maybe even at times a little bit like this. But that made the and hats off to the drummer for making this sound good. But the commingling of the drum work during this lead and how that those two sounded together rather than it just sounding like a lead placed over top of the rest of the band playing, I really enjoyed that. It felt more organic and more conjoined. It just felt more together, the way that this was played, and I really enjoyed that a lot. So this, as this is happening, and then in the immediate wake of this, I think we're talking about like maybe the 8:30 to 9:40 area or somewhere like that in the song. Um, it swells and it begins to buzz and hum, and all of these intentional sounds coupled with the happy accident of it being live and catching all the other imperfections, like the loose drum heads that are rattling with the resonance of the other instruments that are playing, are only adding to this like low grade sustained earthquake feel that they're building with this, like a swarm of bees is approaching from a distance. It's like slow burn cacophony, if that's possible. I know you usually equate that with immediate and abrupt loud sounds, but this is like they grew to it, and then before you knew it, it was upon you. And I really loved the way that they constructed this, to the point where that first 3 minutes that I fell in love with and thought would be my favorite part of the song has now become second place on the podium, and this part has become my favorite. I loved it. I loved the keyboardist sort of taking his cue from the lead man, who was moving as far as he could up the neck of an acoustic with no real cutaway at the sound hole. So he was really getting jammed up in there, but it all sounded great, and it was fun to watch happen and them interact with each other as it occurred. So it reaches this apex, and our lead singer barks a couple times, and then you catch a more urgent bark, and it's like uh a one two, and then, he does the 1 2 3 countdown, and then the song morphs back into this more serene motif from kind of earlier in the performance, or at least cut from the same cloth. And this gives the band plenty of time to like gently spend the last near minute of the song bringing everything back down to earth for a safe landing, which is exactly what they would do. So yeah, while this was like very pretty, and this was a well played song whose dynamics were near flawless, it has this slow, persistent swelling and gentle deflation throughout, and the dynamics at play were stellar examples of how to construct a song and manipulate the music therein. My only critique, again, and I think critique is probably a hard word, would be on how the vocals were captured in this, but I don't really blame the singer for that. So it's kind of like, who do you blame at that point? So at least for me, this, I don't think that the main point of this song was to honestly focus on those three fleeting stanzas of lyrics anyway. It was more in how the song made you feel. And if anything, I think the song musically was meant to make you feel like whatever he was trying to convey, he felt in those brief little blurbs. This idea of being lifted up, sort of without any control or like sovereignty over yourself. Like something else has kind of lifted you up that's beyond you. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. I mean, I think it could have been just as effective if it was an instrumental for me on this one listen. Yes, but I also can't say that 100% assuredness without having listened to the studio version to see if, that would have changed my perspective on things. But this was a really great shout. I enjoyed it a lot, Conrad. And I don't know if this was you or Conrad who chose this link or this video. I assume it was you. If it was, oh no, it wasn't. It was Conrad that specifically. Oh, again, double great shout, Conrad, because yes, the vocals get a little lost in that, but I don't think that's what you were focused on, if I could be so bold as to presume that. And it certainly wasn't what I became focused on as I listened to that. It was this organic assembly of musicians creating really cool shit in this intimate setting, and its imperfections as slight as they were, made it enhanced it for me. It felt like I was standing front row or second row watching this all happen. So, and listening to it all happen. So please, John, tell me a bit more.
All right. Yeah, I will say a couple of things first before I get into it. Yeah, definitely. I don't remember, like, I'm pretty sure that Conrad suggested it. It's a really good shout. I was very excited to see him live because I hadn't seen any footage of him. I absolutely adore this album. Um, so yeah, I really enjoyed it as well. And there's some very interesting things. I come in with a slightly different perspective than you, having heard, this song before. I know it very well. But yeah, so we'll get into it. I haven't got a great deal to say because we really went through it and this album on the previous episode when we listened to Sweet Satisfaction. I'll put the link in below if you're interested more about Mr. Walker's career and stuff like that. I will speak about it in that, so you can check that out. Funnily enough, of Ryley Walker, whenever I see it, I always think of Ridley Walker, the book by Russell Hoban, because of the whys. I don't know why, but that's just me. So this track was recorded on the 24th of June 2015 at the Boot and Saddle in Philadelphia, which is in the United States of America.
So
Yeah. And, I think they did a pretty good job on the whole with a few things lacking, but in a way, it kind of adds to the charm. But yeah. So the people who played on this track and the album, I'll do them both together so you get an idea. So Ryley Walker, the main man, acoustic guitar, vocals. Now Fred Lomberg Home is on the album playing cello, not on this thing. Anton Hatwich, I think it says all the guys' names at the end. Anton Hatwich, double bass and electric bass on the album. Frank Rosale, drums and percussion, but for this performance, it was a guy called Ryan Jewell who toured with him this year, and I think the following year. Brian Solpizio, electric guitar, he was on this, and Ben Boy on keyboards. And for the album as well, there was also Jason Dazowicz on vibraphone, vibes, and Whitney Johnson on viola and background vocals. He wasn't on stage for this one.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, just to recap a little bit, Primrose Green, there's a little bit of blurb here. Primrose Green, 2015, classified by some people as a folk jazz album. And it's inspired by a colloquial term for a cocktail of whiskey and morning glory seeds, representing a murky, dreamy, absinthian experience.
Okay.
Which I'll get into in a sec.
I had no idea.
So the title track and album evoke a pastoral 1970s sound, blending hazy, drug-influenced imagery with themes of romanticized wandering freedom and deep musical nostalgia. And the sort of themes throughout this track and the album, one is this idea of this dreamy mental state, often then coming back with a spirit-crushing hangover, which reflects the sort of the blend of the dreamy pastoral sounds in the album and then the sort of harsher, hazy reality of some of the songs as well. The sound itself has been described as a sort of lost relic from the 70s and harking to people that we featured on the channel, particularly Nick Drake and John Martin and the blessed Tim Buckley as well. Blending that sort of jazz folk and experimental. There's sort of songs throughout the album are all sort of this sort of stoned romantic poet sort of viewpoint and pastoral as well, and talking about nature and journey and emotional uncertainty, all the sort of things you would expect. Critical reception has been really high for this. They praised it as a high point in Walker's career thus far, and his technical prowess and the experimental nature of his backing band.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will say this: I've listened to 4 or 5 of his albums now. Let me just check the vault. So this one, obviously, All Kinds of You, Golden Things That Have Been Sung, and he did an album with Bill McKay, Land of Plenty. And for me, the others are fine. They're a decent album, but this is way above the rest of them. And the reason for that is his choice in the band that he picked. There were local jazz musicians, and it's the jazz element, I think, that just really lifts this up. On a studio album in particular, studio version in particular, the rhythm section is something else.
You could even pick that up in this, not so much the bass, but the drum work in this screams jazz trained. You can tell that right out of the gate.
When you go to that sort of trad jazz, people sort of, and I quite often say like prohibition sort of sounding, but this is more like the sort of the birth of the cool Miles Davis section. This is really, really great stuff. It has that busy shuffling nature to it,
yes,
which is just lovely. Yeah. So, and the original song is the title track and the opener to the album, and it has all those elements that they've mentioned. There is a sort of almost a sort of Scarborough Fair type feel to it in a way that's been modernized. So there's a bit of Nick Drake in there. There's a bit of all of this early Simon & Garfunkel, but then it's been modernized and put through this jazz ringer as well. But you get that sort of and it's very, I don't know what the word is. Pastoral is a good word, but also this sort of like pretty, sort of almost like you imagine Elizabethan songs to be like, but it's then folked up and then jazzed up. So just really pretty. Now, this version was quite fascinating because that initial period that you talked about, where they just basically get into a groove and then just see how they can slowly crawl their way out of this groove and into the melody of the song. The song that I'm familiar with kicked in at the 4:31 mark. So the first 4.5 minutes were not of the studio version, and also a big chunk afterwards as well.
Yeah.
That's how long it took to get to that do 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 do, which is the riff from the original song. Because the original song is only 4 minutes and 6 seconds long. So the intro in this is longer than the actual original song.
Yeah, or close. Yeah, wow, that's crazy.
So yeah, it is really interesting. But yeah, I think this is a fantastic version, and it's lovely to see them expanding. And I don't know how much of this was, improvised or not. I suspect the first bit wasn't. They probably got into a groove and went for it. Perhaps some of the bit later on was improvised, and that's why he had to count them back in again, as it were.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really, really was impressed by this. I think it was great.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say about this album is his vocal performance is superb. His vocal performance makes such a difference to a lot of songs. And when he sort of sings on the studio version of this, he hits the certain notes and he sort of slides them through and then just like sort of places, what they call those markers in the rock faces, like, and you held there up in the clouds, as it were. And he's not going crazy falsetto, but just really strong. Some of the notes are like yawning and stretching as well. It's really, really good. So having just seen this first time, I could see how taken you would be with it, but I think the studio version has something different to offer. And his vocal performance is great on that. So yeah, I will say that is a big draw for me as well.
It's kind of what I assumed, but it's good to hear you confirm that. So
okay, so lyrics to this were very simple, and as golden rule, third verse, same as the first. So head for the primrose green, kept me up all night. Head for the primrose green, made me high. And I ran for the hill with a head full of primrose green. Head for primrose green makes my loving right. Head for the primrose green makes you mine. Lost my mind with a head full of primrose green. Head for the primrose green, kept me up all night. Head for the primrose green, made me high. And I lost my mind with a head full of primrose green. So, in an interview with Mr. Walker, this is how you make a primrose green cocktail.
Ooh.
In quotes, it makes you trips balls, man. It makes you hallucinate. It's basically old granddad, this cheap American whiskey that bums and scalkegs drink. You can get a pint of it for $6. Mixed with these morning glory seeds that we used to shoplift from Home Depot. You get about 20 packets of these seeds and steep them overnight in 2 gallons of cold water. and all the hallucinogenic chemicals are extracted. You strain it to get the seeds out, and if you drink that, you will trip. 2 hours later, you'll be like, this isn't working. What the fuck? It creeps up on you. If you mix it with the whiskey, add a little lime, which is where the green comes from, and you drink a bunch of it, you'll be staring out of the lake, laughing your head off.
Well,
The kids have come up to me and said, we tried it. Man, we lost our minds. And I think, what have I done? I've inspired a generation of idiots.
well, that's my weekend sorted. I've got
Yeah,
plans now. Note
Well,
to self: go to Home Depot.
yeah. Well, the Morning Glory seats is a not so secret that's been around a while from the 60s. So it's a really great performance. I really appreciate Conrad Walsh,
Yeah,
offering this up, because I had a blast listening to this. It sounds like you did as well.
absolutely. Yeah, great shot, Conrad. Thank you.
Okay, I cannot recommend this album highly enough. There's another couple of songs on here. I will dig out another Ryley Walker, because I think it's well worth it. All right, cool. Anyway, I'll wrap things up. So
Excellent.
yeah, thanks to Andy. Thanks, Conrad Walsh, again for suggesting it. Folks out there, tell us what you think. If you enjoyed this, please do hit the like button and drop some comments. Tell us what you think, what you heard, what you thought of it all, any other information of other stuff that I may have missed out on Ryley Walker that's worth checking out. We'd be more than happy to oblige. So yeah, drop some comments. We'd love to hear from you. If you're thinking, how come he got his on this Friday thing and all that, then yeah, well put. All you got to do is drop a comment in any of our episodes, and we will add it to the list. We then send the list to a bizarre bureaucrat somewhere in eastern Poland, who then works out what we got to do and when, till the end of time. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do. We appreciate everybody who does support the channel. So hop on board. You don't have to take your shoes off unless you've trodden in dog shit. That being said, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see all of you on the next episode of the Audiophiles.
See you later, guys.